In this episode, I'm going to talk about Age of Sigmar, and some of you are going to get mad at me. This is a thought that has been on my mind a lot lately, and the reason is because I have been in one of those moods, one of those moods where you're feverishly painting. I don't know if you ever get any of those, where you just start and you just like get into this zone and you just paint all the things. And so I've been in that mode lately. And the trick is that I've been mostly painting Age of Sigmar. Now, I can hear the gnashing of teeth and the rending of garments, but just hear me out. I'm going to explain a couple of reasons why I'm interested in Age of Sigmar and why might you be interested in it as well. All right, so for number one reason, I was always interested in fantasy back when I was playing like 40K and stuff like that. I always thought fantasy models were cool, and there were some that I was like, oh, I don't ever want to look at that thing again if I could help it. But there were plenty of them that I was like, oh, this Nurgle stuff is awesome. These goat people are awesome. These skeletons are neat, all that kind of stuff. But I didn't want to necessarily start and build an entire army. There's no such thing in kind of fantasy back in the day in just going in a little bit. You can't just dip your toe, just like you really can't dip your toe barely in 40K. Technically, there's, combat patrol, which is like 400 points. So you could kind of do that, but then you got to find somebody else who will also play that with you. And I think there's some sort of version like that for fantasy, but I didn't really know anybody who played fantasy. That was the second problem. Most of the people that I knew in the area didn't play, they played 40K. But I still looked at the models and were like, well, those guys were cool. When Age of Sigmar came out, all of a sudden, I could get some of these guys and some of these guys and some of these guys, because that was also a previous issue. I thought that Beastmen were neat, and I thought that Nurgle were neat, and I thought that you couldn't mix those guys together. Skaven, Nurgle, those corn dudes that come in the starter box for Age of Sigmar, the goat people, all those, they can all be on the same team because they're all chaos. Technically, there's nothing in the rules that says you can't just mix and match whatever the hell you want. But most people, from what I understand, kind of stick to the idea that you're either chaos, order, destruction, or death. That should be your army. But that still gives you tons of latitude. So my thought process was, now that Age of Sigmar's out, the rules are simpler. I can get into it quickly. I can play. I'm not interested in, the whole competitive thing. I just want to play some fun games, and I want to paint some models and paint the specific models that I like. So that's what I've been doing. I've been going through, I've done, if you've been watching me on social media, you see I did some goat people, did a unit of 10 of those guys. I've done the 3 Varengard, which I'm still not completely convinced about, but they're done. I just haven't posted pictures of them yet. Lord of Plagues, hence, Old Drippy. Now this is New Drippy, because this guy, Old Drippy, was the model with, and I put a Space Marine, or Chaos Space Marine backpack on him and a pistol on his hip and all that stuff so that he looked like he was 40K. But he was actually always a fantasy model, but I still was interested. So now I've got an actual real one that I didn't have to modify, and it's just a fun model. I have a third one somewhere in the basement just sitting in the package. I may paint him too. I don't know why. Or maybe I'll heavily modify him. Ooh, that'd be kind of cool. Anyway, so now because of Age of Sigmar, I can put the army together the way I want, paint just the guys that I want, and just kind of have a fun time with it, and I enjoy that. So for me, that's one of the reasons why I'm really interested in Age of Sigmar and why I'm moving forward with it. Now there's another reason, though, that I think Age of Sigmar is important, and it's not just about me, it's about the gaming hobby in general. So in the past, let me tell a little story here. In the past, let's say you're a 10-year-old kid, or 12, or whatever, and you have that genetic malady that you have and that I have because you're a 10 or 12-year-old kid, but you're interested in miniatures games, and you have that screw loose in your head, and you're like, you know what? I don't want to play sports. I don't want to play video games. I don't want to read and better myself. I want to hunch over a table and paint little miniatures and then throw dice and do all that stuff. Seems perfectly logical, obviously, but some people might think that it's a little weird. So you've got that weird gene in you, and you save up your Christmas money or your birthday money from grandma or your mowing lawns or whatever, and you go down to your local game store and you see this box of little rat guys, and you're like, those guys are super awesome. I really like those little rat guys. I want to play a game with them. That'd be super cool. And maybe your friend is there, and he's got some money burning a hole in his pocket, and he's also 10 or 11 or 12 or whatever. And he's like, these skeleton dudes, those guys are super cool. I like those skeleton guys. So you pick up your box of Skaven, he picks up his box of Vampire Counts skeletons, and you walk up to the front counter at the store. And you say, we really like these models, and we know there's a game. How is the game hard? What do we have to do to get into the game? Before Age of Sigmar, a good salesperson would have said, well, one of you is going to need the rule booklet at least. And by booklet, I mean it's $75 to $85 and it's this thick. You will not be able to carry it home on your bike unless you brought a backpack. It weighs a lot. Secondly, you're going to need the Skaven army book, and you're going to need the Vampire Bouts army book, and they're between $45 and $50 a piece. Now, you've already shut these kids down. They are done. They didn't bring that kind of money. They didn't bring a backpack to carry home that giant book, and they're just all of a sudden, now they're going to go and, spend their money on crack or whatever it is that kids spend their money on these days. But the fact of the matter is that turns them off, and you do not get a new miniature player into the ecosystem, as we like to call it. Now, fast forward to these days, and guess what happens? Now, you walk up to the counter, and you've got your box of Skaven, and your friend's got his box of skeletons, and you're like, we want to play this stuff, and buy it, and put it together, and glue it, and everything, and all that. What do we need to do? Well, the person behind the counter is going to be like, go home, glue them together, paint them, or don't, whatever, and then go online, download the free rules. It's only 4 pages. You can print them out on your, inkjet printer at home, ask your mom for help, and then print out the war scrolls you need for those, and they're all free downloads online, and you can start playing. Very possibly, if you really go home and bust your hump, you can glue these guys together, snip them all out. You can probably start playing tonight. When has that ever happened before with a Games Workshop game? This is, in my mind, for them, a paradigm shift. For other game companies, to some degree, not all of them, but to some degree, this is standard operating procedure. If you go to the store right now, your local game store, and you pick up a game of X-Wing and a couple of blisters, you go home, you wrestle them out of those weird blister packs, and you start playing instantly. So if anyone's wondering, gosh, why does this game that's based off of an incredibly popular, storyline and is ready to play out of the box, why is it so popular? Well, guess why? It's because you don't have to build them, you don't have to paint them, you don't have to clip them off little things, and all that crap. And it comes all in one piece. Now, with Age of Sigmar, which I think is a very smart move on Games Workshop's part, they can start to target younger people, newer people. I'm not even talking about like little kids. I'm talking about, I got a friend who wants to start getting into miniatures. He's been seeing me paint miniatures for years, and he's interested. If I was to say to him, well, do you have $700 to start an army? He's going to tell me to get bent, and he's going to buy a PS4 and 8 games or something. Well, okay, not 8 games, but a bunch of games, and he'll be fine. But if you go, yeah, buy maybe this guy and a box of these and a box of these, download all the rules and stuff like that online, you're going to be much more likely to convert. It's a business term. We're trying to convert people here. Into sales is the obvious end of that part, but that's what we're trying to do. And they've never had anything other than a couple of their box games, which are more often than not limited edition. See Space Hulk and, that whole thing. They've never had anything that they could get somebody into the hobby that quickly and with that little investment. I mean, both in time and money. So I really think it's important. I understand. There's a lot of people out there that have been playing Warhammer Fantasy for years, competitively, have huge armies, multiple huge armies. And for having Games Workshop just come in and just be like, well, this is what we've got to do, we're chopping it off right here, I would be super duper angry. Don't get me wrong, I really would. And I understand that. I know I listen to a couple different podcasts for people who are into fantasy wargaming, and a bunch of them have just been like, well, Age of Sigmar is not doing it for me. I'll try it out from time to time. I already have the models, why not? But a lot of them are moving to other games, skirmish games like Malifaux and Infinity. But if you're somebody who's getting into it new and being able to get in and buy the stuff you want and get the rules for free and go through all of that stuff, Games Workshop had to do something. We've all seen the reports or heard about them online, read about them on different websites. It was something like 17%. Their revenue, only 17% of their revenue was fantasy. That was it. It was becoming a smaller and smaller and smaller market every year. And so they had to do something. And either A was to just completely cut it off, just amputate and just say, well, if we're not making anything more for it, have fun, we're going to sell off the rest of it. Or they could change the game very drastically, but make it into something that they've never had before, a game that actually pulls people in that are interested. Obviously, it's not going to pull in everybody, but the people who are miniatures people, they can get into it for relatively inexpensively and start playing with the rest of us, which is what we hope. So what I'm trying to say is, between being able to do what I like with the new Age of Sigmar rules and to be able to hopefully maybe get other people in easily and at a low barrier of entry, I think that Age of Sigmar is an important move. I think it was a smart move. I don't know if it's a saving move, but I think it was the best decision, frankly, that they could make. I have a suspicion that if you believe differently, you will tell me down below, and I think that would be a good idea if you did. So let me know what you guys think. And yeah, I know that a lot of people are angry about it, but it's been 6-7 months now, and I think fewer and fewer people, either the bluster has died down or more people have started to look at it and go, you know, it's maybe not such a terrible idea.